You're listening to Were You Still Talking? Hey, welcome to another episode of Were You Still Talking? This is Joel Albrecht once again, and today I have Rob Gutro. He is an author, paranormal investigator, and medium with inspired ghost tracking with Maryland. Since he was a teen, he could receive messages from ghosts or spirits who have crossed over. As a scientist, he also provides some scientific explanation on how energy is a baseline for the afterlife and the medium that entities use to communicate. In 2005, Rob's late puppy passed and inspired Rob to write his first book and enabled him to communicate with pets. Rob participates in private paranormal investigations, helps ghosts cross over, and has provided countless messages from people or pets or ghosts or spirits. He has also lived in a haunted house. Rob, welcome to the show. It's really nice to have you.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Joel. I appreciate it.
I'm very curious about all of this stuff. And I'm not a medium myself or a intuitive or any of that. So it's always intriguing to me. And one thing I thought was very interesting was you went to Tombstone and you investigated some haunted, was it a haunted street?
It was
I'm
the
forgetting
Birdcage
now.
Theater in Arizona.
The theater, yeah.
Yeah, the Birdcage Theater in Tombstone, Arizona. It opened in December 24th, 1881. It closed in 1889 because of the silver mines that flooded that were keeping the town alive, actually. But it was a crazy place. I went there with a friend of mine back in 2019, and he had never had a paranormal experience. And he did. By the time he left, he had two.
Wow. In Tombstone. What a place to have a paranormal experience. I don't know. You were also in a play at the theater?
No. I actually did a book signing at the theater later on.
Oh, okay. When I saw you dressed in the costume, I thought maybe you were performing there.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a backstory to that. In 1993, I saw the movie Tombstone with Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. I became enamored with that. And something looked eerily familiar to me about Tombstone, Arizona. So I went out there the next year with a friend of mine. I convinced him to see the town in a very fun way. I dressed as Wyatt Earp, he dressed as Doc Holliday, and we decided we were going to explore this historic town that way. And it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's why you see me on the cover of the book Ghosts of the Birdcage Theater on a medium's vacation, dressed up as Wyatt Earp in Tombstone.
For some reason, that has always fascinated me as well. There's been a lot of movies about it. Tombstone is probably still one of my favorites, although it's a little sensationalized version of events. It's really well done. I like all of the performances in it are pretty amazing. But I remember a documentary years and years ago about where they tried to piece together what really happened. Mm-hmm. And they did get closer with the Tombstone version than almost every other, because some of those old movies were terrible. So tell me more about the ghost encounter there in Tombstone.
So I first went out there in 1994, and I didn't have these abilities, but I did have what turned out to be a past life experience. Looking back on it, what happened was when I first got there, someone thought we were character actors playing Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday because they do a reenactment out there every day. So they stopped and asked me directions to the courthouse. Now, I've never been there. I had never been there. And in 1994, you have to remember that there was no internet really. There was no, you didn't have cell phones. You couldn't look anything up. You'd have to go to a library. There was no maps of the town. So when I got there and somebody stopped me in the middle of the street 5 minutes after I was there, they asked me where the courthouse was. And I told them specifically where it was without knowing. I told them to go down 2 blocks, turn left, go down one block, turn right, and then it will be on your left-hand side. And my friend looked at me and he said, "What in the world did you just say?"
And did it occur to you when you said it that you had no? It just was there. You just knew.
It did, yeah. I didn't even think twice about it. And so he said, "Oh my gosh, you probably sent that tourist in the wrong direction." So we followed my directions, and sure enough, that's exactly where the courthouse was, which told me that I had been there before, likely in a previous life.
So that was the first thing you thought of. You already, you hadn't had, you already knew about previous lives. I mean, you already had an inkling that those happened.
So back in
From
1994, I had no idea. I
yeah.
couldn't, I didn't make sense of it until like 2 decades later.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you meant in '94 that occurred to you. Yeah.
It did occur to me in
'Cause-
94. Yeah, so
uh-huh.
the incident occurred in 94, but I didn't realize what was going on until like 2004.
And how? Well, let's go back a little further. When did you start getting messages and feeling other presences that were you know
From dead people?
from dead people or yeah. I mean, well,
Well,
do you get it from live people too? That I have a lot of questions.
no, I do not.
Okay, so
I
that's
can't.
interesting.
The only one I can read better than he knows himself is my partner. So,
Hmm.
but that's it.
That's pretty
Um,
normal though.
yeah, it is true. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're together 18 years and you get to know each other better than the other person.
yeah.
Um, but it all went back to when I was 13 years old, and that was, well, I'm not going to tell you what year that was, but it was a long, long time ago. And it, it was a sudden event because um, my grandfather, who died in December of uh, the previous year, materialized in front of me in full color in July. So 7 months later, when I was home with the dog and everybody else had gone out. And he scared me. I mean, it scared me so much, I was panicked and I grabbed the dog and ran outside. When my parents came home, I told them. And that's when my mother said, "We have to talk," because she had the ability and she was afraid to use it.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah, and it turns out my grandfather, the one that appeared to me, also had the ability. So, you know, she, so all these things are kept from me.
Uh huh. And
Um,
did she kind of suspect that this might happen one day?
she did not actually. She hoped that it had skipped a generation.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, yeah, and my brothers, I have two brothers, older and younger, and they don't have this ability. So it's just me. And and over time, so I ignored it for a long, long time. And it wasn't until my puppy passed that you mentioned in the beginning of the program that he reawakened my abilities, and he gave me the know-how to communicate with pets as well as people on the other side.
Yeah, that part's very unusual. I don't think I've spoken with anyone who communicates with pets. I've spoken to mediums before, and I've spoken to oh, what did he call himself? He was a magician that did tricks. And so he investigated mediums, and he said he could prove that any mediums uh, a trick, but uh, what do you call it? Oh, a mentalist. So it's just, but I like that you're also a scientist. So that's intriguing to me. So how old were you when you first communicated? When your dog died, and you communicated with your dog?
Oh, it was 2005.
2005. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I was I was in my 40s,
Hmm.
my early 40s. Yeah. Um, and it was totally unexpected. Um, so uh, it- you mentioned being a scientist, and being a scientist, it's important for me to get proof of everything. So I have had to look at the science of different things. One, the all of my I lay everything out in terms of energy. So it's the science of energy. So In terms of energy, there's a law called the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can't be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So what I've come to find out is that the physical energies within us, if you think of cell splitting, if you think of thoughts that are little electrical impulses, those things, those energies combine with the memories, personality, and the knowledge of this life. And then as an energy entity, we make a choice. We can choose to stay earthbound at a fixed location of our choosing, like a home that we grew up in, or perhaps a hospital we died in, or a battlefield or a prison that people die in. Or we cross over and we join the energy of the other side, or heaven, or Valhalla, or whatever you want to call it, the other side. And that's what I call a spirit. So ghosts are earthbound, spirits have crossed over. And they each have, there's a difference between the two of them aside from location. And that is with energy. They both use physical energies of heat, light, water, electricity. But spirits of our loved ones use love, faith, and hope to come back. And ghosts use fear, anxiety, depression, and anger. If you go in a haunted house, or one that you know to be haunted, and you're anxious, you're really empowering that ghost to move something, or make a noise, or touch you, or create a cold spot.
Wow, that's interesting. And how did you how did you figure out all the science of this? First of all, I want to go back to how did your dog communicate with you? How did that, was it a feeling? Was it did something move in the house?
Well, he did a number of things.
Oh, he did a number of things. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing I've learned is that there's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to spirits, because they make things happen. They make us go to a certain place at a certain time, look a certain way, hear something. So in terms of my puppy, he had help from the other side, from, I believe, my grandfather, to give me the very first sign. After he was killed by a car, after about an hour, my neighbors helped me bring his body back to my house in my vehicle, and I was going to take him to the vet so they could cremate him. But I walked into the house, and I was the only one home, and the radio was on mysteriously. I did not leave it on, but it was on. And the song that was playing was Garth Brooks' The Dance, about a man who got to the opportunity to love very deeply for a very short time. And I just thought, that's really weird, because that's exactly what happened. This puppy was only 7 months old.
Oh, and also I've got to ask this because my wife's going to kill me. What kind of dog?
A Weimaraner.
Okay. This is going to be an important question for her. So,
okay. So you can tell her that we've had Weimaraners and Dachshunds. So we have the German dogs. So a musical sign was this first one. The second song, by the way, that came on that radio station, which was weird, by the time I got everything together and went out the door, was an obscure song by Alan Jackson called "My Heart's as Empty as a Monday Morning Church." And it's about a man who's the love of his life dies, and his heart is empty. And that's how I was feeling. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to put that in the back of my mind. I'm not going to think about it. Long story short, there were many things. At the vet's office, when I was joined by friends, we were waiting in a parking lot. The lid of a trash can popped up about 4 feet into the air, and there was nobody next to it. And I suddenly heard in my head, "Dad, I'm here." And I just thought, who was that? And it was Buzz. Over time, I saw I actually saw him materialize in my house, and I wound up following him, thinking it was my new Weimaraner that I adopted. got into a room where there was no exit, turned on the light, and there was nobody there. My dog was asleep upstairs. My new dog.
So it
Uh,
looked like a solid dog. I mean, it wasn't like
it
ghostly
did.
spirit looking. It looked like a dog. It looked like, yeah,
Yeah, it did.
yeah.
Which freaked me out because I ran upstairs to find out where my newly adopted dog was, Dolly, and she was asleep curled up on the bed.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, that was not her. um, One of my favorite things that Buzz did, Buzz loved to chew shoes. And when I adopted him, I had a roommate that I really didn't care for, and Buzz didn't like him either. And one day, after Buzz had passed, he was coming out of the house, and he ran out the door screaming at the top of his lungs. And he got to the car. I was sitting in the car in the driveway, and I said, "What is the matter with you?" And he said, "I I was in the hallway and I saw a sneaker move from one side of the hallway to the other side of the hallway. There's nobody there."
Wow. Wow.
So secretly I was saying to myself, "Good boy, Buzz."
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to be hard too. I mean, I've had dogs pass away after 14 or 15 years, and that was difficult. But after 7 months, I think I don't know. I think that would have even more of an impact. When you expect it a little more after 14 plus years. But yeah,
It
that's
did,
really
because
hard.
when he came to me, he was given to me as a birthday gift. When he came to me, he had pneumonia, and I took 2 weeks off and spent 2 weeks with him under a tent, giving him medication with vaporizer and all that, nursing him back to health.
Hmm.
So we really developed a very tight bond.
Wow. And then, so when did you? How did it develop to going from seeing your dog and getting messages your dog to kind of the point you are now, writing, helping other people, and writing all these books, and that's a long that's kind of a big leap, especially, and learning this. I mean, it sounds like you've learned a lot about the science part of it. Did you
I
have to
have
learn that on your own, or was there people that helped you with it? It was all,
No, I
yeah.
had to make sense of it on my own, the science side of it.
Hmm.
So I did befriend another medium. Her name is Barb Mellon. She's in Virginia, and she used to have these medium sessions where 45, 50 people would come, and she would do a public event, do readings. And I would sit in the back, and I would get all these weird messages from dead people. Uh, and I would share them, and they were, as it turned out, they were all accurate, which blew me away. Because I didn't, I didn't expect it. But one of them was from a dog, another dog that was not mine. It was from a Chihuahua, and his name is Chico, and that's what he said. His name is Chico, and this is how I decided to start reading other pets from Chico. So Chico told me that he belonged to a woman in the audience, and that he was helping a medium-sized black dog to become a better dog and behave better. So during the break, everybody was filing out, and I said, "Chico, tell me who is your person." So he he told me she is. So I stopped a woman, long brown hair, and I said to her, "Excuse me, this is gonna sound weird, but there's a little beige Chihuahua here named Chico, and he has a message for you." And her mouth opened, and she said, "Oh my God, that's my grandmother's dog that just passed a couple of weeks ago, a little beige Chihuahua named Chico." And she said, "What in the world is he doing here?" And I told her about the black dog, and she said, "I have a black lab." And she said, "My black lab has been behaving better ever since Chico passed." And I couldn't figure it out. And I said, "Well, now you know why."
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That is pretty nuts. Yeah. uh, Definitely. And so, from there, like, how do you research ghosts? How do you
How do I
research
do?
spirits and ghosts, and realize that it's all energy changing form? I guess is sounds like what you were describing. You know.
Yeah, so I joined a paranormal group. When my first book came out, I gave a lecture to Inspired Ghost Tracking. It's a group in Maryland. And they asked me to become one of the mediums on their team. And I told them, I said, at that point in time, I was more like a medium rare, if you will.
Okay.
I
Do
did
you
not
have
have a
a
lot of.
do you have an old ambulance and stuff? Yeah.
Good, what?
Does the team have an old ambulance and some? No.
Like
Yeah,
Ghostbusters? No, unfortunately they don't. But they do go to private homes throughout Maryland that have paranormal problems or may have paranormal problems. And so over the last 13, 14 years, I've been part of that group, and we have been on some really weird cases. And everything has been confirmed, but of people that live there. And one of the most famous cases I've been on is one that is in my book called The Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking. I call it the double murder ghost investigation because we went into a home with a family of four, mom, dad, two kids, and they were reporting seeing shadow figures and having sheets pulled off their bed and all kinds of weird stuff going on, cold spots and so forth. Um, I went in with another medium who had also just joined the group. He's a friend of mine that we both realized that we had, these abilities. Um, and we wound up talking to two women, an older woman, a younger woman. It turned out they were both brutally murdered in this home by a man that was renting a basement apartment. We got all of these things and how they were abused and murdered and so forth. It was horrific. Um, we wound up confirming every single thing from the police report, which was stunning to me. And so all of that is in my book. And one of the technical guys, we have a tech team and a medium team. So the medium teams go in after the tech team. Tech team consists of people who bring digital recorders to record sound, infrared cameras, high-speed cameras, thermometers because of cold spots, which I will explain in a bit, and K2 meters, which measure magnetic fields because ghosts are energy. And
Okay.
you can get a
Hmm.
K2 meter at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever because electricians use them to check your fuse box or your connections. So,
Oh, right, right. That's pretty amazing that you and your friend both had this ability. I suppose you were kind of drawn together, possibly because of that.
well, no, actually, it was kind of
Because
odd because he is a coworker in my science career, and when I kind of came out of the medium closet to him over lunch one day, he said, "Oh my gosh, I have the same kinds of abilities, and I didn't know what to do with them." So,
wow,
yeah.
wow, the medium closet. That's kind of a good way to. That's an interesting way to describe it because I mean, you probably it must be difficult. I can imagine. I mean, there's one or two skeptics out there, even though there's television shows now with mediums. There's television shows with ghost hunters. There's all this publicity around it, but
Yeah.
I, there's still. I would think there would be a lot of skepticism and weird stuff to put up with.
So it's good to be skeptical. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a man email me this summer, and he said, "Look, Rob, I heard about you and your ability to tune into pets. I am a total skeptic. I don't believe this at all. But my daughter is devastated by the loss of her dog, and he begged me to do a reading for him. And I do readings. I do them on the weekends. I do them by email, but I'm booked all the way out to May of 2024. So I'm
Wow,
a year
wow,
out.
yeah.
So I did a reading for this guy, and I said, "Look, this is for your daughter. It's not for you." And he wrote me back, and he said, "I cannot believe the things that you touched on that only my family knows about this dog. And he said, I am no longer a skeptic. So, um, I've had people say to me, well, you go on people's Facebook pages and you investigate them. Well, I don't have time for
Now that's what I do.
that. Yeah,
That's what I do as a podcaster, and it works. I'm telling you, there's
but
a
that's
lot of people.
research.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just standard research. I
but
mean, but
I mean,
it's. I think it saved me a few
it does.
times.
It does. So honestly, Joel, when people email me, I ask for a couple of things, and I ask for their name, the names of the people in their house, the name of the pet, and a picture of the pet, and any questions they have. I don't know where they live. I don't know what they do. I don't know anything about anything, and
Hmm.
that's how. I have had pets on the other side show me houses, the inside of houses, in Turkey, in Mexico, in Canada, in Germany, and they're describing these things that they are associating with in houses where they live. Um, and to me, it's weird.
Right. It sounds pretty weird. It's pretty amazing, really. And they speak to you like we're speaking. They you
Well,
communicate with them
it's
like
really in pictures.
in pictures. Okay.
Yeah. And they also learn words.
Hmm.
They learn words that they can share with me. So, for instance, in my latest book, Pets in the Afterlife 4, which is Messages from Spirit Cats, this is one of my favorite stories. This cat named Buddy had shared with me a whole bunch of things for his mom. And the one thing that really stood out to her and really what made me shudder because I didn't know what it meant was a word named Mala, M-A-L-A. I've never heard of it. And of course I didn't know where the woman was from. Um, so I wrote it down and I said, look, I have no idea what this word means. I know mal in Spanish means bad, but I don't know what mala means. So I said, you're probably going to think I'm crazy.
Mm.
So she wrote me back and she said, Rob, my cat comes into my bedroom every morning and we close the door. And the only one in the world that knows this word, mala, is me and my cat. It is the name of a meditation that I do every morning, the mala meditation. And she said, I can't believe that he was able to convey that word to you. It was chilling.
Wow. It is chilling. I'm getting chills just hearing the story. So, yeah. That's amazing. So you're you're always doing it over email. You never have, yeah, just
Yeah, and so the reason I do that, Joel, is because it takes a lot of quiet and concentration for me to listen to a pet. It's not like listening to a person. It's you have to come from the angle of where the pet's coming from, whatever they can show you, and then sometimes you have to try and figure it out.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that makes sense. When did you write your first book? Have you always been a writer, or did you just decide you needed to write this down and so more people could hear about it?
I wrote the first book in 2010, and then I did that using a diary. I used to keep a diary,
Hmm.
and so I recorded all those signs from Buzz, and as such, I used that as the basis for my first book.
Okay, so you were already used to writing every day, keeping a diary, so it was something you already did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, there were a couple of other crazy things that I had as in the first book. The first book is where I came up with the idea of a difference between a ghost and a spirit. Um, and spirits, by the way, can visit you anywhere, anytime, any place on Earth. ghosts are stuck in that location that they choose. So it's very, very rare that a ghost will be able to attach themselves to a person. It's only happened twice in the 12, 13 years I've been doing this. But spirits can visit you anywhere. So, like, if your grandmother passed, she can come to you if you're on vacation, anywhere. My mother passed in 2013, and when I was taking a trip with my partner in Germany, back in 2018, I think, I told him, I said, my mother is here. I can feel my mother around. And it's like, okay, whatever. Well, maybe she'll confirm that. Well, we had to take a bus, and the bus drove us by this supermarket in Germany, and the name of the supermarket was Norma, an Italian name, which is my mother's name, in the middle of Germany.
Wow. Wow.
And I said, there you go. There's your sign. Could be
There
any
it
more
is.
blatant than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And it's interesting the distinction between ghosts and spirits, especially after. Have you ever watched Ghosts, the comedy?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, because it's very much like that. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love it.
they're not explaining anything, which I think is good too. But it's a fun show. But it's kind of like that same thing. Um, so the I'm curious more about also the sort of you said you help people move on a lot of times. And like, what's that process like? Is it different every time? Does it ever just not work? Where people think they're ghosts and maybe there's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some people think that they have hauntings and they don't.
Hmm.
Um, there's a uh, there's a thing called poltergeist, and poltergeist activity is really it's energy created by emotions from living people that simulate how a ghost is or what a ghost can do. Um, it's usually energy that is created by a teenager, whether a teenage girl or a teenage boy. And we've gone on, I think, 4 or 5 cases where it actually has been poltergeist activity generated by a teenager. One where a teenage girl was emotionally upset and did not like her sister, so she would make shadow figures appear in her sister's room, and she was
Whoa.
able to move
Wow.
things. And because when we went and we investigated, we didn't find a ghost. So we asked the homeowner if she had 2 teenagers, and she said yes. And I asked her, do you have one teenager that does not like the other teenager? And she said yes. And one teenager with some emotional issues, and she said yes. And sure enough, when that older teenager got some counseling, the poltergeist activity stopped.
Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
That's still wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how did you how did you first like discover the difference between ghosts and spirits? Did ghosts tell you, or spirits, like, did they explain what was going on to help you, or you just had to do it
I just
on
figured
your
it
you just
out.
figured it out?
Because in yeah, as a paranormal investigator, I realized that ghosts seem to be stuck. They're stuck in the place that they choose to stay, and they can't move on. They can't cross over. They also can't come into dreams. Spirits of our loved ones can come into your dreams, and dreams are the easiest way for a spirit to communicate. So if you've lost a loved one, like I just did, like my father-in-law passed away, dreams are the easiest ways for him to communicate that he's okay on the other side. Um, so I had to make that distinction because I didn't want to call them both ghosts and spirits, because they're not. They're one's stuck in a location and the other one is not. It's like energy streaming through the cosmos. If you think of like solar rays, or gamma rays or X-rays or cosmic rays. They just stream through the universe. And that's pretty much what I look at a spirit as being.
Oh, interesting. That's yeah. Now I had another question for you, and it's slipping my mind a little bit what it was. Um, the so do they have you like asked spirits what it's like on the other side, or you know gotten information about that? I still haven't had anyone on here that's had a near death experience, but I've always been interested in that, and I noticed I have my own theories about what those are, but it's yeah. Do you get information like?
So the information is limited
Mhm.
because it's not really for us to know yet. but but what I have been able to do is I've been able to figure out that when we pass, there are spirits that are going to be waiting for us on the other side. They can be people that we knew, or we are related to that we never met in life, or pets, animals that we are connected to in family or friends. Um, Love is like an emotional energy spider web that connects everybody together. And we can meet any of those people on the other side. So some mediums will paint a picture for people, and it's really just a way to bring calmness and peace to people. But uh, with me, I just see everybody as energy with a consciousness. So there's no buildings on the other side. There's no jobs on the other side. You know, it's energy.
Hmm.
So some mediums will paint the other picture that it's the same as the physical world, and it's really not. It's not at all. Um, it's all about energy and love in spirit.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. That kind of jives. I mean, the first thing you said is it's not for us to know. I've always thought that.
Mhm.
There was now I'm forgetting who said it, but a famous author was saying how the near death experiences are like the introduction phase, and if you go beyond that, if you do die, there's going to be way more that. And also, I've always been. It's always seemed to me like we can't really understand it in our current incarnation. That we would, we it's too much for us. It's like all the different ways that people try and understand God or spirit or whatever you call it.
Sure.
We're limited in that because we're in these emotional bodies, I guess.
It's like trying to teach a first grader quantum physics.
Right.
Just forget
Or most of us.
it, or most of us. True.
Yeah. Yeah, I read the book about that was supposed to make quantum physics easier. Not by Carl Sagan, but no, I'm forgetting who did it. A Brief History of Time. Um, I don't know if you've ever read that, but
Stephen Hawking.
yes, thank you, thank
I
you.
did read it.
It it didn't work for me. I was like, this is fascinating. I have no idea what you're talking about. You probably understood it as a scientist. You probably could get closer.
I understood.
But
Well, I
yeah.
understood a good part of it, but then he lost me in different parts.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was with it for a little while, and then it was, and now
yeah.
those most of what's in that book has kind of been expanded upon greatly with the theory of everything and all that kind of stuff. Pretty incredible. So I remember now. I remember because you even said you had a loved one pass away recently. Is it easier for you when that happens? Is it different because you can speak to him? You know that when you see him in your dreams, that you're actually seeing him in your. I mean, I've seen loved ones in my dreams after they've passed, and I always kind of think that's could be real, but I'm never sure. Um,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, it is, especially if you have a dream and you can maybe smell their perfume, or you feel them, and you're giving them a hug and you can actually feel them in your dreams, that's a deeper dream. That's what we call a visit. But to answer your question, yeah, it's become a lot easier. When when my dad passed in 2008, that was devastating because he was the first in my immediate family. But my dad helped me prove to my mother and my brothers that he was at his own wake and his own funeral with a handkerchief. So it's kind of a long story. But so once that happened, it it became easier for me to deal with passings. Um, and I hear from my mom and dad, both of them have passed from time to time. I swear that my partner says things my mother would say all the time, which makes me crazy. Always channeling my mother. um, so a funny story for you with my mother. When my mother passed in 2013, during her wake, I had gone up to during the wake. I had gone up to the casket, and my mother always took pride in the way she looked. She was always in makeup. Her hair was always perfect. Even when she was 85 years old, she would still wear heels, like high heels. She had to be perfect. So when I went up to the casket, I heard my mother say, "You need to get a pencil and darken my eyebrows." And
Oh my
I laughed.
gosh, she didn't want people seeing her this. She wanted her makeup
Yeah,
had to be better.
she said they
Yeah.
didn't do it right.
Wow.
You need to darken my eye. So my partner came up to me and he goes, "Why are you laughing at your mother's casket?" He said, "Is she here?" And I said, "Yeah." I told him why, and what her request was, and he said, "Don't you dare darken her eyebrows." So,
Somebody's got to do it.
yeah.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of members, aunts, uncles, cousins, and we always end up laughing at funerals just because of all the stories and things like that. I've lost half of my family, and I'm not that old, but my immediate family. I lost a
Wow.
brother very young, and my parents, well, young for today's, what's typical today. They were young, but it wasn't that long ago. My dad passed
Wow.
very suddenly, and my mom, it was really tough. She had Alzheimer's, so
Oh my gosh.
it's like losing her for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a really, really hard thing to deal with. But that eventually it took her.
Well, they're still around you. They can hear you and they can see you. So we should take we should take note of that and comfort in it.
Yeah, and that is comforting. And I definitely, say things to them now and again, talk to them as if they're there. So it's nice if they can hear. But I'm okay too if they've moved on and are doing something else, not hanging around here all the time.
So one thing you should know is that typically spirits who have passed away will come visit us around birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. And the reason for that is that our emotional energy is usually elevated around those times. And those are the times that we always celebrate with living people. So they want to acknowledge those times, whether it's your birthday or their birthday, anniversaries like maybe the anniversary of their passing, or a wedding anniversary or some other anniversary, and always holidays. They will always be around the table, usually at holidays, because they still want to let everybody know that they're still there.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense to me. We had very large holidays for a long time. Not so much anymore, but we used to. So it would make sense that they would be around at that time. Completely makes sense. Definitely. What? Oh, how many books have you written now? I was looking at your notes. I almost said my notes. You have a lot of books out. How many years have you? When did you start?
So I started in 2010.
2010. Okay.
I've written 10 books. I tend to generate one book a year, and my books are not all alike.
Hmm.
I have three different categories of books. One is Pets in the Afterlife, which has pets one, two, three, and four. The other one is Ghosts on a Medium's Vacation. We talked about the Ghosts of the Birdcage Theater. That's one of the books in that series. And then Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. I went to England and I ran into so many dead people that I made a book out of it. Um,
Oh, wow. Well,
and
it's been around longer.
yeah, oh my gosh, it's so hot. So, and the other series is Ghosts and Spirits, which includes paranormal investigations. And I did a question and answer book about all kinds of paranormal questions for anybody that has them. Um, and there's a book called Kindred Spirits, which is kind of unique. I wish somebody would make it into a movie. Actually, it's about when I met my now husband. His late partner came along for the ride, and I never knew this guy in life. He died in 1996, but I've grown to know him so much from spirit that he's like a best friend that lives in another state. Um, he helped me solve the mystery behind his death and finally bring peace to his dad after 15 years of grieving. He showed up. He sent a lookalike to help us when we were lost on vacation. And we were both stunned that this guy looked exactly as he would have looked had he lived today. Um, he's given acknowledgments that he's been there when our dogs passed away. So there's just countless things. And other things I couldn't put in the book because of things that he conveyed about my husband's past life with him. And,
Oh, okay, sure.
yeah,
Understandable.
you know.
And how, so do you always have dogs? Do you also have cats and or birds or turtles or goldfish or?
So any domesticated animal can connect with me. And um, I have done readings for, I only have dogs, but I've done readings for dogs, cats, horses, birds, ferrets, rabbits, rats, gerbils, bunnies, you name it. If they're domesticated, I can do it. I kind of draw the line at spiders and snakes because I don't like them. And my personal preference would, I think, block messages from them.
Oh, right, right. They may. I see what you're saying. Yeah, rats are really smart, so I guess that wouldn't be surprising. That's
They
a very
are.
smart animal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you like raise dogs? You said you always have warm runners and
Dachshunds.
dachshunds.
Yeah.
Dachshunds. Oh, you do.
We do. Yeah, we have three. We have a dachshund, two dachshund mixes. And we worked with those rescues, those type of breed rescues for the last 15 years. So we've done fostering and transporting and adoption and um, everything, fundraisers, website building, you name it.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Always good to hear. Anyone who's involved in animal rescue, that's a good thing.
Thank you. So one of the things that I came up with about 4 years ago, or no, probably about 5 years ago, uh, was a way to do fundraisers for animal rescues. And that is, I would go to an animal rescue and do a lecture and teach people how pets communicate from the other side. And what they would do, what I came up with is that the rescues would charge people to come to this talk, and maybe they can connect to their own pet by through examples and so forth. Um, and they can share examples that they have from their own life. And I don't accept any money from the rescue. All the money they raise goes to the rescue.
Oh, that is great. That's a really unique type of fundraiser. So
Yeah,
I mean, really, you're teaching people how to do what you do, and you're
exactly.
hopefully, yeah.
And bring them comfort.
Hmm.
So I think I have 4 rescues booked in New England this fall. Um, I've done them everywhere, up and down the East Coast. So if anybody knows a rescue that is interested in having me do a fundraiser, I would be more than happy to do it.
Oh, that is awesome. That's really great. Thanks for putting that out there. For yeah, because that definitely it's something that I've not heard of before. So it just seems like, and there's always rescues are always looking for new ways to to bring in
Mhm.
money. I know always. So that's really great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I came up with that myself. And one of the things that's important to know too is that our pets want us to adopt another pet, usually, because they know that we have so much love to still give, and there are so many pets that need that love.
Oh, that makes sense. That's really nice. A nice thought too. I when I lost my dog, I didn't want to. I still haven't adopted another dog because it was just so heartbreaking. So
Mhm.
I couldn't imagine. I have cats, but I haven't gotten another dog since then. But that's a nice thing to know. That's a nice thought.
Well, I will say, Joel, that when I've done some readings for some different cats or dogs, some of them have told me, just a few of them have told me that they want the pet parent to adopt a dog or cat of the opposite sex because they want to be the only male, they want to be the only female.
Well, that sounds like it. I did. I mean, I got a cat that acts like a dog, so maybe that's close. He think he's a
So
funny
that
cat.
brings up the reincarnation thing. People always ask me about reincarnation, and yeah, we all do come back, but usually our pets wait for everyone they know in this life before they come back. So your dog that passed is not going to come back to you as another dog. And if they come back to you as another dog, they're not going to remember their previous life. So, but they usually they will not come back while we are still alive. Um, they'll come back and train your new pet to do something that they used to do.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting, huh? And they'll wait till we reincarnate. So reincarnation is just it's an interesting subject. Have you always believed in that, or was it when you started um, experiencing things like in Tombstone?
Um, well, really, yeah. It's hard to know exactly when I began to believe in it, but I always had the sense that everybody comes back.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah.
And the we started talking about the haunted theater in Tombstone, but we never. I don't think we ever finished.
No.
What was that story? Let's at least let's get further into that.
Okay.
Just
So,
because I love that area and stuff.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I became enamored with Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, and in the '90s, I started traveling to places that he lived and so forth. Um, I was going to write a book about Wyatt Earp, but there's so many of them that I didn't need to. And I certainly didn't set out to write a book about the ghosts of the Birdcage Theater because I didn't know there were so many there. So in 2019, when I went back, I should say, I asked a friend of ours who had never had a paranormal experience to go with me, and I told him, I said, they just started ghost tours. How about we do that? I said that way you can get the history and you can see how the paranormal thing works with me because I've been doing the paranormal thing for 10 years. So he said okay, and well, he wound up seeing two ghosts, and he took a photograph of one of their faces in a mirror
Oh wow.
in the book. Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Um, so I ran into 11 different dead people.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is that the the tour guide who works there as a history person was able to confirm every single person that was dead that showed up to me. So, um, one thing that ghosts do with me too is that they'll share their pain of death. Like when I went on the double murder investigation that we talked about earlier, and those two women were murdered, they made me feel like I was hit, punched, pushed down the stairs, stabbed, and more. When I went to the Birdcage Theater, now that my abilities had awakened, they were dormant the first time back in 1993 or 1994. I walked in there and I sensed a woman up in the lobby on the mezzanine level, walking back and forth. And there's been a woman sighted there. She's a lady of the evening, but she was there. But when I went in the back, that's where it all hit me. During the ghost tour, it was 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. As soon as I walked into the back area where the theater was, suddenly I felt a bullet go through my throat. And I was thrust against the back wall. And I couldn't speak. For about 2 minutes, I couldn't speak. I could feel a bullet. I could feel blood coming out of my throat. And then I tasted the coppery taste of blood in my mouth. I could actually taste it. And I realized that it was a ghost sharing how he died, and he died on that spot. He told me his name, and he told me what happened. He told me he was cheating at cards, and he got up to run, and they shot him in the throat, and he died right there. And he's been haunting that particular part of the Birdcage Theater ever since. So I drew a picture of him. I like to sketch because I've always liked drawing superheroes, so it comes in handy. So all my books have sketches in them.
That's great.
And so he was confirmed by the tour guide. And I will tell you that I went back in the next day because I had befriended the owner of the Birdcage, and I went back in to do some video of little areas where actually this was like 3 years later, 2022. I went there in 2022 to do a book signing, and I went in to do little short videos of where I spotted these ghosts. And same ghost came through to me, shot me again in the throat, a repeat, and I knew who he was. And I said, look, I know you're there. I know you're dead. I know you're angry. I know you cheated the cards. I'm just going to be here to film a couple of short videos about you and the other people, the other ghosts I encountered. So just please leave me alone. Well, the audio in all the video clips were nothing but a loud buzzing. Before I went in there, the audio was fine. When I left there, the audio was fine. So I have a video clip of me out front of the Birdcage Theater saying, I'm going in the Birdcage Theater, I'm going to show you where the ghosts are. Every single video was destroyed by electronic interference. And that was the guy. He was being a jerk.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That is. It's when I read books and they describe brutal killings like that, I just picked up a dime novel kind of book where I was staying at the coast, and it's just using my imagination. It's really hard for me to picture things like that. So I can't imagine actually feeling what the person went through. And does that happen a lot to you? And
yeah.
And also, I thought it was interesting that you described in the way he was killed, how most real gunfights went down. It wasn't two people in the street. It's the same as today. It was somebody shooting somebody else. That's more the real West.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and by the way, there are a couple of others in that Birdcage Theater. So 26 people were murdered in the Birdcage Theater, as it turned out, within the 8-year span. There are 140 bullet holes that still line the walls and floors and ceilings. You can see when you go in there and tour it during the day. So yeah, there are a lot more.
Wow, that sounds like a new HBO series, like where Deadwood left off at the Birdcage Theater. Yeah, good title too, Birdcage.
Yeah. Well, they gave that name in 1881. I had nothing to do with it, but yeah. So for anybody who's out there, you can take a daytime tour, a historic tour, self-guided, or you can join the ghost tour at night. So.
That sounds pretty fun. It's just amazing that many murders happened in one building in what was that, 20-year span?
8 year, 1881 to
Eight years. In
1889. Yeah.
8 years. What was now? Is there like is there some bad energy in the where they put it or something? That just seems crazy.
So what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened in that particular time period is there were just as in the movie Tombstone. This is true. There was a band of rogues and villains named the Cowboys. They would rob stagecoaches. They would shoot people randomly, murder anybody anywhere. They didn't care. It was all about money for them and power, and there was no law, and that's why Wyatt Earp and his brothers and Doc Holliday changed a lot of that. A lot of the murders happened earlier, before Wyatt and Doc showed up.
Yeah, that story has always intrigued me because nobody would dare do what they did to stop crime now. What did they do? They said, no guns in the city.
Yeah,
Period.
exactly.
The end. You want to bring a gun in? That's fine. You can have it when you leave. It's not, you're not going to take it away. We're just going to hold it for you. And that's literally how they stopped gun violence in the West. But that changed, I guess. They can't do that anymore. I just always thought that was interesting because it's such an iconic figure. You know, he's held up as even though he probably was a murderer, he's held up, as at such a high. He's just, that story is told over and over and over, but people seem to forget what he did, which was pretty simple. It was just
he murdered those villains.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And I also thought it's interesting that the word cowboy comes from bad guys. Because the cowboy now is like this iconic hero, right? The cowboy is this known now, and throughout life. I think the Westerns started in the 18 teens. We started making Westerns, and the cowboys were often the heroes. And so I always thought that was interesting. That's really where that iconic name came from, is a gang of thugs, right? That's. That just was always interesting to me. But I still think more people should write books about Tombstone because I'm not sure if it's ever been told accurately. I've seen some documentaries that seem to be more accurate, but it's such an interesting piece of history because
it is. Yeah, it's a fascinating place. So I would urge you to go there.
Yeah, I would like to. I think I went there as a little kid with my parents, but that place is fun to visit, and that whole area is fun to visit. It's pretty incredible. So I think I've just about covered everything that I was. I think I've gone through all my questions. It was really awesome having you on the show. Just let me check. I'm just checking here to see if I missed anything. I'm looking at my notes in the background. There's way more that I could cover, but this is a big subject.
Yeah, there was it's been 15 years of experiences, and so while you're looking there, I will take one moment to explain my science behind cold spots, because nobody else that I know of has found a way to explain cold spots. And as I mentioned, ghosts draw on energy. So what I have concluded is that they draw the energy from the motion of air molecules. And how that works is that fast-moving molecules of air are warm air. When you slow them down, slower-moving molecules of air are cooler air. And that's why where a ghost is materializing, you get a cooler column of air. You have a cold spot. So that's my scientific explanation for that.
Oh, that's it. That's great. Because I have not heard that anywhere. So that's pretty amazing. The question I did have, which I got from you, but I had it anyway. Does everyone have these abilities? Because I sure have not ever felt that I did. I've always felt very grounded, I guess some people say, never really. So what's your take on that?
It's kind of twofold. One, it does run in the family, but two, I write these books to teach you how to look for signs so that you can, in fact, be aware of how spirits communicate. And you don't need a medium to give you a reading. Just be aware of your environment and know that there is no such thing as a coincidence.
Oh, that's really interesting. And I love that you've written books, with that in mind, because I've talked to at least one other medium, maybe more. I'm starting to lose track now. I have just enough shows where I've lost track of all my guests. But they always say what you say, and that they're booked. They're completely booked up. I guess it was because of popularity of mediums now with television shows and things like this.
Well, everybody wants a personal reading. And there's just only so many people that have a gift to be able to accommodate that. And if I didn't have to work full time as a scientist to support myself, I would be more than happy to do more readings. but you got to pay the bills.
Oh, so it's not. I see. That just means you're not charging enough. That's the rule of self-employment.
Well, yeah, that's true.
If you're booked up, but that's okay. It's great that you're making it accessible to people.
I want everything to be affordable for people because not everybody makes a lot of money, and because I'm self-published, I get to set the rates of my books, and every single book is below $10 because I want people to read them. I want people to understand how to look for signs from spirit. Again, I'm not out to make money from this. I'm out to educate and to bring comfort.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's really nice. Because obviously some people are out to make money. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. This maybe will be the last question. You said you do ghost investigations. Have you ever been asked to investigate other mediums for their validity?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I think that everybody has different gifts on different levels. And I will say that in my Pets in the Afterlife one book, there are chapters from 3 friends of mine who happen to be mediums. I mentioned Troy from IGT, Inspired Ghost Tracking, and Barb Mallon, and my friend Ruth Larkin. They provided chapters of how their pets communicated with them as well. So I will not investigate other mediums because everybody has a different gift.
Oh, it's true. I think it's a skeptic in me, but I think there are people out there who are trying to take advantage.
There's always
there are people in the world, who may not be doing it the same way that you are. I don't feel that way about you at all. But I'll just say I should say thank you very much. It's been awesome having you on the show. And so
it's been great talking to you, Joel. You're such a great guy.
Thank you. It's a subject I'm very interested in, both pets and mediums. It's a tough one. I don't know which. I think the pets are more important.
Well, you've got a little bit of both today.
Well, then I will just say thank you for listening. You've been listening to Were You Still Talking? This is Joel Albrecht, and the guest on my show today has been Rob Gutro. I'm going to have all the information about him in the show notes. Check your show notes. You can go to his website. You can go to his YouTube channel. There's a lot of different places that he's available. And he said on my show that he would do a free seminar for your shelter. If you have a shelter that's trying to raise money, do programs, do different things, definitely get a hold of him. That sounds like an amazing offer to me. Absolutely amazing. And all his books are on Amazon. That's right? All the books are on Amazon. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, let me know. Give it a like somewhere, wherever you're listening to it. And give me a comment. And as I always say, be good to each other. And be good to yourself.